Alright, so today you're going to be drawing a still life object as practice for your charcoal drawings. You'll have a handout to kind of help break down the steps. You'll have the paper that you'll be doing the drawing on. You'll have some masking tape, a value finder to help you out with your values, some charcoal pencil, some with erasers, bigger erasers, and stick charcoal. So you should have all these materials. The very first thing you want to do is give yourself a nice border on your small paper. So if you take your masking tape, you don't want to directly put the masking tape on because it still has a lot of adhesive. So I recommend you put the masking tape on your clothing and release it to get some of the stickiness off of it. So I do that a couple of times of just going on your clothing and then putting it on the border of your paper. I usually like to line up with the end of the paper so that I have a nice regular border, but if you'd like to actually tape it down to the table, that's also an option for you. Alright, and once you have your paper finished, you're going to want to look at what you're drawing. For me, it's this skull, and this is the view that I have currently. And so if I look at my little guide paper, it tells me to focus on the composition, angles, proportion, figure out where things are. So I'm basically figuring out where all the little things are. But most people would go and grab a pencil to try and sketch, which you could do that to start off with, but we want more the bigger values going on. So for me, I'm gonna start off with the block charcoal, and I'm just gonna I'm trying to figure out if I want to do landscape or portrait as well, and I think I'd actually rather do portrait, and figuring out a rough guide of where my object is, and then maybe also some of the background as well. Alright, so I have a very basic line drawing. I want to make sure that it looks to be about the right sizes, and then I want to go ahead and dig into the values. So my skull is a pretty light on the value, but there are some values there. The darkest bit is probably the eyes. But overall it does need some value. And then my background, while I do have some things going on there, I think I'd rather make my background on the darker end to really help my skeleton pop. And then my box is the lightest thing, but the very lightest thing in the entire composition is part of the top. There's a shadow going on underneath my skull. There's another shadow back here, but the rest of it is quite white. The rest of it is also white, but there's a small black hole, and then it does have a little bit more value. And this side as well, there is a little bit of value that's even a little bit lighter than that. And then my table is probably a mid-tone, so I need some value. So from here, I want to start my blending. And you could do it with your finger. The issue with your finger is that your fingers often have natural oils in them, and that can mess up the paper a bit. So I always prefer to get a dry paper towel and roll it up. And then you have a makeshift blending stump. So I'm going to start with my lighter values. And then I'm going to go into my darker ones. Okay, so now I already have basically a blurry image that focuses on values and not the lines of my composition. So now that I have my big parts of it, I can go in with my pencils and do more details. I would also recommend you use your erasers as a drawing implement as well, because you can draw with an eraser. So there's a highlight on top of my skull, so I can take my eraser and bring it out a whole lot more. And I can also go back in and add more charcoal. It's very much a give and take. The charcoal is giving you more value, the eraser is bringing it back. So try and work on this in the amount of time that you have and really bring out the feeling and the value of what is going on and not necessarily the itty bitty little lines of it. And also, as I'm working, I can use my value finder. If I feel like I'm not understanding how light or dark something is, I can literally hold it up to what I'm looking at and see what value it matches, and then hold it back down to where I'm working. So that highlight that I did before is actually a little too bright, so I actually need to dull it down to a 2. When you're finished with your drawing, you'll want to put it in a box so it doesn't blow away on you. You want to take your fixative and shake it up really well. The fixative is clear, so you don't really have to worry about getting on things and staining it. You'll press the little sides to pop off the cap. When you spray it, you want to do it in quick little bursts going all throughout the drawing, and you may want to do a couple of layers, but you may want to give time in between them drying as well. So I went all around it, but I'm going to give a couple minutes to dry. Never leave this unsupervised because somebody could steal it, and I wouldn't leave your pieces out here alone either unless you tape it down, because the wind can pick up and blow it away. And if it's really windy, I'd also just let the wind calm down before you try to spray if you can. If you're in a rush, you can do it. Also, if it's rainy, you don't really want to have to do it either. Okay, after you've let the fixative dry, you can take your tape off. But just know that this is workable fixative, which means you could actually work on top of it or erase it to work into it. So if you did want to go and work on this later, you could, but if you feel like you're finished for now, you can remove your tape. You want to take the tape and carefully remove it. And I recommend pulling it directly back slowly, and that'll give you that nice clean line.